My name is Camilla Tassi, and I am a projection design student at the Yale School of Drama in the class of 2021. One of the beautiful things, and I think actually what ultimately drove me to Yale, is the arts community at large, at all levels, from undergraduate to graduate students. And, a couple of the projects that have been dear to me in this year and a half here have been, for example, one of them was this Italian Baroque Oratorio done in Sprague Hall with the Institute of Sacred Music students. And we decided to include design into a performance of a 2-hour Italian Baroque work that was not conceived with design elements. And it was sort of beautiful to see how that allowed the performers and the audience to connect with the narrative of the work even more.
We're all experiencing this moment of social distancing right now. And your path to the Yale School of Drama was unique because you came in last year as a special research fellow, and you're continuing your journey as a second-year student right now in the design program. And I know that there have been many projects that have been canceled due to the current crisis that we're in. So I wonder if you could speak a little bit to those projects that have been impacted, that were already in development, and how you and other designers that you have been in communication with are dealing with that.
In this period, I've been thinking a lot about students graduating from Yale, both at the undergraduate and graduate level, and how this pandemic has resulted into the cancellation of a lot of their culminating degree work, particularly their recitals. And so I felt compelled to reach out to students at the undergraduate level, in the opera department, in the Institute of Sacred Music, and see if they were willing to share and record at a distance one piece from the recital that they felt closest to. And in doing so, then involving design students in the School of Drama and across campus to visually respond to their works in a way that, of course, it's not going to match up to the live performance, but in a way that's going to honor some of the work that they came to share here at Yale, and also improve in their craft.
And given the switch to more digital and online platforms, we are seeing that people all over the world are using Zoom, YouTube, TikTok even, in order to kind of channel that creative energy that has been sort of pent up in a way to release it. And so it's making me think about how the culture of collaboration will change and transform post this moment of social distancing. And so I'm wondering what you imagine will be the new normal for the culture of collaboration post this moment.
I think the fact that now we're not limited to the boundaries of our individual departments, and we're not separated by buildings. Right now, we're all living in this online space. And I think something that can be very beautiful about this period, even in thinking of the Yale community, is that it doesn't have to be just Yale students collaborating with other Yale students, but we can reach out beyond the walls of the university in making creative work with others. So I'm thinking a lot about accessibility.
Because projection design is so dependent on technology, high resolution projectors, and the actual physical architecture of the space that you are going to be projecting on, given those limitations that are now imposed because we're all stuck in our homes, I'm wondering how you are coping with that and how you're kind of scaling down perhaps larger scale projects, and is there a way that you can still produce that artistic experience given the limitations of the technology?
A lot of projection in performance especially does rely on this grand scale of the projection, but thankfully we do have access to a lot of software that allows us to create 3D smaller models of maybe the set that we're thinking, or space that we're thinking of interacting with. And I can speak for myself personally. I don't have any, large or high-tech projectors with me, but I have access to a small Pico projector, and It's through playing with materials and with models that we can still prototype, which I think is really important. But one thing I'm a little bit excited about with projections and with digital media is that I personally find that in a lot of contemporary performance, a lot of video design relies on this like spectacle aspect, and now instead we're forced to really think about the intentionality of bringing design and visual into a work.
Why opera as opposed to any other genre of music or of a live performance event?
I think part of my love from opera did start from the language and culture I grew up in. I grew up in Florence, Italy, and my grandma, when I was about 10 years old, gave me a CD of Verdi's Nabucco. And at that age, I know I wasn't having an intellectual, very deeply intellectual connection to opera. I didn't even know about all the like social political aspects of why Verdi wrote it in that time. But what always drew me about opera was this sort of very honest and raw outpouring of emotion, and the sort of power of the unamplified human voice. And in the end, I think it's
And
storytelling.
just to close out our conversation here, we're living in this moment of a lot of uncertainty. And so it's refreshing sometimes to just get a little bit about somebody's story of what brings them the most joy about their particular artistic practice. And so, Camilla, what brings you the most joy about projection design?
I love projection design, and I think it has a lot of applications. But I think in these days, what brings me the most joy is that we can find ways to be present with people, at times more present with people, even if we're not in the same physical space. And I think that can shape the kind of art that we're sharing with others in this period. Now we can maybe let in the audience a bit more into the process. We can create chat rooms and Zoom meetings where audience members can ask questions of the artists, and we can have more time for dialogue instead of performance just being a presentation. Now it can really be a conversation. And it's funny, I know it's not directly my field, but I think right now, that's in these days, that's what's bringing me the most joy.